Hi, my name is Janet Skinner. Sometimes in life we need a purpose to continue. And back in the early 1990s, I was looking for a reason to live, if you like. Just happened by accident one day that I saw that Geebung station, which is in Queensland, was going to be demolished and replaced. So I decided to paint it. And during the 1990s, I painted 104 railway scenes, and that kept me going. As I sat on the platform and railway sidings, old people would come over and speak to me and tell me about life in the good old days. These were elderly people. It transpired that many of them were born in the early 1900s. I wrote down their names and phone numbers, and I went back and interviewed them. There's a series of some 35 railway tapes that I'm making of the interviews that I recorded in New South Wales and Queensland. I'm not a journalist. I've got no background training in interviewing, and I really hope you enjoy these films. I hope they bring laughter to many and insight into what life used to be like. And please bear with me. I had fun doing them, and I hope you have fun listening to them. Thank you so much.
Lots of changes there because the Mayne cabin, when I first went there was steam, a lot of steam locomotives, and very few diesels. But during the time I was at this cabin, I saw the changes come from steam to diesel and then from diesel to electric. And that was a very big change because no matter what operated in the suburban area, whether it was a cattle train, a ballast train, a passenger train, or whatever, anything to do with the north side commenced and finished at Mayne, no matter what it was. The locomotive power came from our depot, and then as years went by, when they built the Merivale Bridge, the south side closed down, and the south side men and the locomotives then came to the north side to be incorporated with our town. So we had control of the lot. I enjoyed the experiences there because they were experiences. The signalman's grade, apart from this big cabin and another one at Rome Street, possibly a few in Rockhampton and Townsville and those places, the majority of the cabins, a good probably 90-odd%, you were by yourself. You were alone. In these situations, you could have 3 men on a ship.
Yeah, the Mayne Signal Cabin for 3 men.
And the peak hours, you had one man work from midnight till 4 a.m. and then your second man, which was the assistant, would come on at 4 a.m. He was 4 a.m. to noon. And then there was another man would come on at it was 5 a.m. and then he'd stay for the peak hour. 5 to 1, and then another one 1 to 9, and that 4 a.m. to midday. There was another chap come on at midday and went through late and so forth. You know, so that the coverage, you had 3 men on from 5 a.m. till 8 p.m. at night, and then after 8 p.m. We were restricted to 2 men again. So we went down the clock, except on a Sunday. Funnily enough, on a Sunday you were by yourself from midnight Saturday night until 4 a.m. Monday morning. There was only 1 man on. And so you had to know your timetable, which was your big thing. But I also was privileged by one of the senior men there that subsequently passed on. He taught me the engine and carriage grouping and how to do the timetables so that we could operate the traffic. And that took me 3 weeks to learn how to do it. And one exhibition, which in those days was a big thing, we had 2 tracks through what they call the hole in the wall. That terminology comes up. I've even struck it with signalmen in Sydney and Melbourne. They want to know what the hell is the hole in the wall.
What is it?
It's still there. It's opposite Bowen Hill Station, the present Bowen Hill Station. It's a little track. Now it's only single. It's a single track line that goes round what we call through the hole in the wall and up towards Normandy. Say you live in Brunswick Street, and there you can travel on what they call the third road and come into another new platform new to me, and then you can travel through, if you're getting on a train at Brunswick Street to go to the exhibition, you can go through this hole in the wall. It's just a hole, by definition I suppose, something that's been stuck here for donkey's years. But in my day there were 2 tracks we could run trains in either direction. But now they restricted it to 1 because of the electric trains. They didn't, the curve was too tight for them, so they restricted it to 1. But to get back to the steam days, etc., there were a lot of changes with the from steam to diesel and then to electrification, and I was involved with the early stages of the dieselisation and also the electrification out on the Ferny Grove Line.
How would it affect the running of the signal cabin, like the train?
Well, we used to get a lot of extra duties, let's put it that way, because you had to be aware, in the early stages, we had to be aware of what was electrified and what wasn't if you had an electric locomotive. Although the engineers claimed they put, this is early days, they put safety protection in that if we routed an electric unit, into a non-electrified area, that means there's no overhead wires. There would be an X come up in a little background light next to the signal with an X on it, but that wasn't very successful. A lot of drivers were just used to looking for a red or a green or an amber, 3-position light signal, or in the case of a semaphore signal, once the semaphore signal came down, all they were interested was getting wherever they wanted to go. And a couple of times it did happen. Not only at Mayne, it happened at Rome Street, but an electric train was routed into a non-electrified area. For one reason or another, they seemed to put, well, the department seemed to put 90% of the blame on the signalman and 10% on the driver. And we maintained that it was 50-50. He's just as responsible out in the field as what we are. But anyway, that was a little bit of background in the early days.
Can you describe to me what it was like inside? When we look at the painting now, and we first of all talk about that walkway that goes into it. That
walkway, the one that you've taken there, this particular photograph you're showing me here, this is the last days of the cabin as I remember it. I've noticed that you put in here on the right hand side what I presume would be the concrete wall of the new bridge. Why I say the new bridge, the old one was a lower the road traffic outside and was wooden. But when they demolished it and had to build this one, I was involved in that episode as well. They demolished this bridge, the road traffic bridge outside, which caused us a lot of headaches because looking at this painting that you've done here, the windows used to open, they were sliding windows. These were on the side coming in off the road, on the front facing the roadway and the traffic out there, and there were also similar ones at the northern end of the building. This is when I went there in 65, and what can I say? When they built this new bridge, it was several feet higher.
Higher than the old one?
Than the old one. And the department at one stage were not going to put this footbridge in for a signalman coming on or off duty to have access to the cabin.
They didn't want to put the footbridge there?
They said, no, it's not warranted. So at the time I was union secretary, and it was the Queensland Railway Signalmen's Union, and we negotiated with the department to have it put in because of the need for us to walk down through a gate, which was on the left of this footbridge, through a fence, down a pathway, past what we call the old battery room, that's this way, because in those days it was full of batteries.
If you look at the painting of Signal Cabin, on the left of the painting, low down, there's a little building with a tiled roof. That was called the battery room.
The battery room.
And what was that for again?
Well, there again, this was prior to my time, but apparently that's where they stowed a lot of the batteries for the power, for backup for the relays, which were located on the what we call the middle floor.
Right.
The ground floor down here contained the compressor, because Mayne was in those days what was called an EP frame, electro-pneumatic. You had pistol grip levers, and they worked on the principle that you were not only interlocked mechanically, but once you pulled it, all the points outside and the signals were operated by air pressure. That was the electro-pneumatic. You had electric in this sense, and you were not only interlocked electrically, you were interlocked mechanically. It was a very, very intricate system, very, very safe system.
So you would have had to walk all the way around?
Yep, past the battery room and up those flights of stairs that you show here, which if you didn't feel very well and you had the flu, I used to suffer with a bit of vertigo. I used to like looking at the wall, because by the time you climbed up those stairs and came around, and then inside there was two entrances rather, this one off the roadway and the one around here.
So you was the one that instigated having the walkway put in across?
Well, replaced, let's put it that way. There was one there, but because of the intricacies involved, they had to build a higher one, etc., etc., to get to access off the roadway. The department was very reluctant to put it in because of costs. But another thing that really swung in our favour was the safety aspect. Whenever we as a union member went in and said safety, they backed right off, because we said if we needed to leave the cabin in a hurry, to go out here to be involved in something near the hole in the wall or near a set of points, we had to physically leave this, climb all the way down here and go out. Whereas you could race out here with a red lamp and put it over the bridge. And we used that very successfully on many occasions.
So all the signal controls would have been on the top floor then, would they?
All the signal controls were here.
How many levers would be in there, would you estimate?
Well, we went, the Albion, what used to be the Albion Signal Cabin was incorporated into this cabin by the time I came back from Rockhampton. Before I went to Rockhampton, Albion was a signal cabin by itself. When I came back from Rockhampton, the Albion Signal Cabin was incorporated into Mayne, and it was known as the frame levers were A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, J, K. Notice I mentioned there was no I, because I could be interpreted as one. So that was Albion, and then you went from number 1, lever, and then you went through to, I think, but I'll get back to you on this, I think it was 126. And then it took over the Bulimba Junction cabin, that other one that I mentioned that I came down with before I went to Rockhampton. Bulimba Junction cabin was there. By the time I got back, Bulimba Junction had been incorporated into this one as well on a separate panel, so that we could control the movements of trains in and out of Newstead. The Bulimba Junction cabin didn't exist anymore.
Can you find out for me then, Graham, at the
definitely
end of the day, how many levers there were in there?
I will, yep.
Yeah,
I'll get to that before I finish.
so they were all manually operated then, were they?
They were all manually operated.
Must have been a nightmare, was it?
It was. Well, I tell you, you were given 3 weeks to learn. And first day I walked in across
Not from
this.
scratch though, the whole thing. Not.
Well,
you had a lot of knowledge before you got there.
Well, the thing was, I was fortunate in the respect that I'd worked Albion cabin, Bulimba Junction cabin. I knew the traffic, I knew the trains, I knew which way the Sandgate ones went, which way the Ferny Grove ones went, etc., etc. So that was a big help. But
was there a fail-safe thing for human error in that type
oh,
of thing?
definitely. Oh, yes, it was all interlocked. Definitely all interlocked, and there was a lot of fail-safe.
So when you're talking about signalling, what are you actually talking about for the layman?
For the layman, okay.
A lot of people that are going to be reading this book, Graham, have absolutely no knowledge at all, and it's also going to be for schools and things like that. So they don't know what the word signal means.
Well, the signalman.
What signals are they giving?
Well, we had what they called at this particular cabin. We had light signals, which are like traffic lights out in the main roads, and the hours were main roads, the reds at the top, and the railway, the reds at the bottom.
So you're operating signals. How far away from the cabin are you operating these signals?
The signals were all around this cabin. As a matter of fact, there were signals just at the base of it.
But how far was the furthest one?
Wooloowin. Wooloowin Station. We controlled by the means of that A signal. That was the trains leaving Wooloowin Station halfway between Wooloowin and Albion. And we also controlled, this was the early days before the Ferny Grove flyover was put in. We controlled signals coming in from the Ferny Grove branch just after you left Windsor. Because we had to protect the entrance to the main yards, to the bridge yard in those days. That was on the north side. Coming from Brunswick Street area, just after you left Brunswick Street station, the second signal after you left Brunswick Street platform, heading towards the northern suburbs of the Ferny Grove, we controlled that back as far as there, and to the exhibition ground, by the exhibition ground, plus everything in between. And when I get to this diagram with all these signals on it, you'll realise what was involved. And once I was also involved, I'll just digress for a moment. I mentioned they're going out to Ferny Grove. We used to go across an old little low bridge out to Ferny Grove branch, and the department subsequently, when they demolished the old Mayne station and the air raid shelter, that where the main station was, and the old air raid shelter for World War II shelter, that is the commencement now of the Ferny Grove flyover, where you go over the tracks. Because what used to happen in these early days, if we had a train to go to Ferny Grove and a train to leave from behind the cabin, or to come from Normanby or Roma Street area to travel north, they couldn't, one had to have preference over the other. So with this Ferny Grove flyover, once that was put in, trains could come and go from Ferny Grove as well, and it didn't interfere with any of the north-south flow of other traffic. I can get that. I know there's a lot to be done. Unfortunately, I should have got all that out on that, but I'll come back on that. We'll get that. But no, it was a busy job, and there was a lot of history involved. Noting this picture here, is that enough on the signalling?
Yes.
I should have mentioned there the signalling was mainly to keep the trains apart from running into one another. There were safety devices, or track circuiting, what they call track circuiting, put in. I won't go into that too deep because it's very deep, that one. But we have had some narrow escapes in the time that I was there. What used to really surprise me with this place was really, one thing that really frightened me when I first came here was that in the early days, if we had there used to be there was a timetable that if these two trains were on time, it was something worth watching, let's put it that way. The mail train coming in from Townsville, the timetable to go through here was say at 6:11, and it was travelling from Wooloowin Albion area to traverse the north end of the cabin, travel past the back of it and go via Normanby to Roma Street at 6:11. There was a train to go to Ferny Grove, say at 6:12, to leave from the front of the cabin at the old main station and go out there at 6:12. Now, with the length of the train, it would be impossible to have them both on time, but sometimes they would both get there at the same time. We had the facility in the signalling that we could give a clear signal for the mail train to come through, and at the same time bring that Ferny Grove train in on what we call a flashing yellow signal I think it was ME19 signal, and that would come into the platform at the old Mayne station. And many a time I've noticed that whilst the passenger train, mail train was travelling through, this other train was coming in. This one was travelling this way, this one was coming in, and he'd stop at the platform, and there would be possibly 3 feet from the front of the cow catcher of the BB18 going to Ferny Grove to going into the centre of one of the coaches going around the back, and that used to frighten the hell out of me.
Because it could roll forward or whatever.
Well, the excuse was that the driver of the Ferny Grove train knew he had a flashing light to bring him in, and it was clear only to the platform. And 99.99 times out of the 100, the drivers knew their timetables as well, and they knew that they could look ahead and see that the train was going across their bows. But the thing was, we had to do those sort of tight moves because of the constraints of the timetable. You blocked the Ferny Grove back here, you blocked another one. The chain reaction built right back in the peak hours. And possibly behind that mail train was another passenger train. So it was one of those things that the facility was there to do it, so we did it. And we prayed to God that everything worked all right. But never mind, that was just one of the little things that could happen.
You was going to talk about a little lean-to or something on the
Yes,
top floor?
on the top floor here, I've noticed on your very recent photograph and painting, this little building at the top of the stairs here, but to the right of the stairs, there's an annex type building put, or an addition put onto the rear of the cabin. Before I get onto that, just this corner here, coming in off this walkway, that was our toilet.
Right.
That was our toilet
Okay.
and wash basin.
Right.
So in summer, autumn, winter and spring, we had to come out of this door and then go to this little annex, this to here, and that was your toilet.
Okay. I was just talking about where the toilet was now. When you
Yeah.
go along, look at the painting, you go along the big rampway to the way in, and on the left of that, there's one little window on its own.
Yep.
That's the toilet. Okay. It looks like you go along a landing upstairs, and you come to the far left. What? That's not there now.
I think it was.
Yes, it was.
They might have put a safety rail in there,
Everything is
but
there.
there was never any access of it. Just the left.
Right, okay. But it was there, because that is Evelyn's, as it was.
Oh yeah, well that was good. Remember that? They might have put this in. No, they could have.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
probably for the workmen working there. Sorry,
Everything I do for life, so there is.
I apologise.
Okay.
So we have no access to it.
Okay, now we're going to talk about this when you look up these little, like, what I call
Step.
fire escape stairs. I know
Yeah.
they weren't, but you come, there's a little landing with a little tiny roof on it, a little, sort of
Yeah.
little building.
Well, that little building actually, the perspective that you've taken is, it's not really at the end. It's about 9 or 10 feet inside, really, in floor area. Now that there was, when I came to Mayne in 1965, we'll call this the back wall. This back wall here, prior to that being put on, that little addition. This back wall. Now this back wall was completely blocked off. It was a wall, and except for a little window up in the northern corner at the back, so that we could look out of that window at anything down behind the battery room. Because in those days there was a building down here called the loco roster office. That's where your drivers, firemen and guards were. So that we could, if we wanted them, we could either ring them up or lean out the window and yell out at them. But, okay, now that building's gone too. Now on this wall here at the back of the cabin were what we call the block instruments. The system was that in those days Mayne worked with Central Signal Cabin in the city, with Normanby Signal Cabin to the west, and on the Ferny Grove branch we either worked with Newmarket or with Mitchelton, depending on the hours of duty. Going north, we worked with Eagle Junction, the station master at Eagle Junction. And when he wasn't on duty, we worked with the signalman at North Cape. Now on this back wall, as I say, were all the instruments. The belling instruments, when a train left Central, they'd bell the train onto us. And if they were all in chronological and timetable order, we were to record all these times when it left Central, when it arrived at Mayne, when it left Mayne, etc., etc. And that was all recorded in what we call a block book. And the majority of the cabins that I worked in, these block books used to last us anything up to 12 to 18 months. The one at Mayne was 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
A month, and we'd fill a book.